There's someone I want you guys to meet. He's called Timmy. Timmy is a money plant, and he's the perfect desk companion. I water him once a week, make sure he receives some sunlight, but not too much, and for some reason, he just makes me happy. And it turns out I'm not alone. A lot of us have Timmys at home, and Lizzies, and Sharons. We water them, we name them, we love them.
I adore it for the blue-green color that the leaves have.
Wake up to it every morning. I don't know, it just makes me really happy.
I really love this Hoya.
We treat them like people, like they're one of us. And for those of us living in cities, in the absence of nature, we've started a new trend of humanizing plants. But what if this wasn't a new trend at all? What if the idea that nature is a part of us and that we are a part of nature is actually our origin story? And what if recognizing that in a court of law could help us get closer to solving the climate crisis? Throughout history, our relationship with nature has evolved dramatically. We've morphed from riverbed dwellings to mega cities, sitting above nature and no longer with it. Extraction is part and parcel of today's contemporary world. And we're seeing the impact of that all around us. But there are some communities that are warning us to think differently.
Los indígenas estamos ahí resistiendo. Esa es nuestra lucha, eso es cambio climático que detenemos. Los primeros soluciones en todo el mundo, las indígenas son soluciones, pero capitalismo es destrucción.
As vastly different as indigenous cultures are, many share this in common: a relationship with the environment that tells another story of what nature is. Something that is not as different from us as we currently believe. Something that is not for our economic profit. And ultimately, something that can have rights and should be protected, just like we are. Today, rights of nature is a term that could potentially bridge the gap between indigenous and Western knowledge and help fight the climate crisis. But what does this really mean, and how could it work? Well, it's a recognition that our ecosystems like trees, oceans, animals, and mountains, basically nature, has actual rights that can be defended in a court of law. And this idea is already starting to gain traction. At least 30 governments around the world have instituted a legal rights of nature. And one of the most innovative ways of doing this is through something called environmental personhood. It's the idea that nature should be recognized as a legal person. And this is defined as a human or non-human entity that has legal rights and is subject to obligations. It basically means that anything a person is entitled to, nature would get as well. Right to life, check. Protection from harm, check. Freedom from ownership, check. Pension scheme and healthcare, well, not quite. But you get the point. And more specifically for nature, it would include things like ecological well-being, biodiversity, and protection from industrial pesticides. And the list goes on. Today, indigenous communities have played a key role in getting these rights granted to nature. And that's what happened in New Zealand, in one of the most famous cases, the Te Awa Tupua. The Maori people fought for more than 140 years for these rights. That's 5 generations of being way ahead of the game. They wanted the world to legally recognize that this river is a living entity and to treat it like one. To the Maoris, nature isn't property. It shouldn't be owned and it shouldn't be abused for natural resources. And in 2017, the law agreed. The Crown finally granted personhood rights to the Wanganui River. This was a huge step, and it made waves in global media. We are wading to the front of legislation here. Now you may wonder though, what happens next when a river becomes a person? Well, for starters, it can make harmful environmental projects illegal.
It means that the river itself has the right not to be polluted. It has the right not to be degraded. It has the right not to be overdrawn before it can replenish itself.
Environmental personhood also can strengthen indigenous rights. The Maori people were entrusted with the legal guardianship of the river.
That means all decisions regarding the waterway must adhere to 4 Maori values agreed on by the government and local tribes.
But it's not always simple. Enforcing these laws can be really difficult. One challenge is that nature often crosses borders. For example, Bangladesh granted all of its rivers legal personhood, but it's powerless to enforce this for the same rivers in India. And because people don't always agree who the enforcers or legal guardians are, or who they should be. And they'll also have varying financial means. And that matters because it's expensive to pursue lawsuits and to hold offenders to account. This is what happened in Ecuador. An NGO successfully sued a polluter on behalf of a river. But then the company didn't comply with the ruling and the NGO couldn't afford to file a second lawsuit. It's tricky, and in many cases, the kinks are still being hammered out. But ultimately, environmental personhood is about a much deeper paradigm shift in how we view our relationship to nature. And it's one that we desperately need to fight to tackle the climate crisis. Because here's the thing, our separation from nature isn't real. It's something that we've created because it's convenient, because it allows us to cast nature as an externality or a commodity to be extracted. But it's not too late to change that, because beyond Timmy here, there's a whole world out there that we need to reconsider how to look at. And indigenous cultures have led the way on this. Using the law to grant nature rights can prevent a whole lot of environmental damage that we're currently causing. So next time you see your own Timmy, think about what he or she represents. Let them be a reminder of the seeds of legal justice that we need to plant to grow a better world.